Salutations, one and all. I'm back once again to talk about RWBY. This time to discuss the latest book, RWBY Roman Holiday, which I'm aware came out quite a while ago, but I have been rather busy and haven't had a chance to read it until just a few days ago, so sorry about that, but I am definitely excited to talk about it. We open up with an 8-year-old little girl named Trivia Vanille playing tag with her imaginary friend Neo, which, yeah, I did not see that coming. At the start of this book, Neo is an imaginary friend for a little girl who has 2 different colored eyes. And I spent a fairly good chunk of the book thinking that Neo was some sort of ancient godlike being from the realm of dreams who was trying to infiltrate her way into our world and take over Trivia's body. Yeah, that wasn't the case. That wasn't the case at all. Instead, Neo was essentially a piece of Trivia that she wasn't able to express. It was her desire to be free, her desire to explore the world and just do whatever she wants, which is a desire that was certainly stoked by her parents, who kept her locked in her room and never let her have any friends, which, yeah, bad parents right there. Very, very bad parents. I mean, at the start of the book, it just seems like they're doing this because they're disgusted by her deformities, if you can even call them that. But later on, it's also revealed they're afraid that she'll be kidnapped by mobsters, which is a whole other storyline I'll get into in a bit. But yeah, first off, let's talk about Neo's deformities, which, yeah, again, that is certainly an exaggeration, but not to them. I mean, Neo's different colored eyes are so abhorrent to her parents that her mother can't even look her in the eye. She has to turn away in disgust. So, yeah, not a great parent right there. And her father isn't much better because, like, he fully seems to believe that Trivia is capable of talking, but just chooses not to because she enjoys messing with him. In fact, there are multiple times out the book where he says, Trivia, my dear Trivia, if you will just talk, if you will just speak to me, then all will be forgiven. And that just really, really struck me as weird when I was first reading this book. Like, okay, how stupid are you? Like, if I was to put this man's intelligence on a scale from 1 to 10, it would be a 0. It would be a complete and absolute 0. And this just made no real sense to me. I mean, this dude is important. He is the city manager of Vale, a very important position, but he can't understand that his own child is incapable of speaking. That was so weird to me. But then I thought, okay, maybe this is supposed to be more symbolic, like maybe this is supposed to represent any parent who doesn't accept their children for being who they are, for whatever reason, for what they want to do with their lives, for their sexual orientation, for whatever. It's just the parent screaming, why can't you be normal? Why can't you be just like me? And I think my favorite example of this is actually on the very cover of this book, which I didn't notice until it was pointed out to me later on. But if you look, in the background, you can see the family portrait of Trivia, and in it, her eyes are both brown, when in real life, one of her eyes is pink. This man literally told the guy that made a portrait of his family to make his daughter look like him, to make his daughter look more normal, because he was so disgusted by her, he couldn't even accept a picture of her looking like she really does. And that is sad. That is so overwhelmingly sad. So yeah, like I said, very bad parents, and just to really, really drive that point home, the first chapter ends with her father ordering her to clean up broken glass, which she has already cut herself on, in the middle of the night, just a few hours before her 8th birthday. Oh my god, that was awful. I mean, yes, she broke the vase, but at the same time, there's, making a child take responsibility, and then there's just being a jerk. I mean, at the very least, he should have, stayed to make sure she didn't cut herself again, stayed to make sure she actually did the job and cleaned up the vase, because she didn't. She just walked away. I mean, Neo convinced her to walk away, but she just walked away and went back to bed. That is such bad parenting on so many levels. We then flash ahead a few years. Trivia, she's 12 years old, her parents are hosting some big, super important party, and she's not allowed to leave her room, so she decides she's going to break out of the mansion and go into town, go explore Vale alone for the first time in her life, and she's having a grand old time checking the food stalls, doing whatever she wants, until she comes across a group of older kids who start to bully her, and Neo responds by punching one of the girls in the face, which just utterly and completely perplexes Trivia because, for one thing, she didn't tell Neo to punch the girl in the face. Neo is the result of her semblance, her illusion powers, so Neo shouldn't have been able to do something that Trivia didn't want her to do. And what's more, Neo has never been solid. She's an illusion. You can put your hand right through her. And yet, Neo very clearly just broke this girl's nose. So Trivia is really, really confused, but she doesn't really have a whole lot of time to think about it because the cops come in, detain her, and bring her back home. And this is, several hours after she first ran away. And her parents didn't notice. They had absolutely no idea that her daughter had left. And so her mother orders her to, go in through the servant's entrance. Don't let anyone see you. And this just royally, royally ticks her off. She wants to be seen. She wants to be heard. She wants to be acknowledged. So she breaks into the party and just goes wild with her semblance. Goes straight up Old Testament on everyone. Rats here, flies there. Eyeballing that guy's drink right there. Just sowing chaos and discord like freaking Loki right here. Until her father shows up and orders her back to her room. And as she goes up, she's like, wait a minute, what did I just do right there? That wasn't me. That wasn't my decision. That was Neo. Neo took control of me. Neo made me do that. I have to be careful. I have to make sure that Neo doesn't get out again. I have to make sure that I keep Neo in control. Though this doesn't really seem to work all that well, as the very next chapter is her drugging her tutor, stealing her identity, stealing her car, and then going on a massive shoplifting spree all across town. So, yeah, I definitely say Trivia failed to keep Neo in check. Though before she left, she actually also managed to print out a bunch of incriminating evidence about her tutor and left it on her desk. And this is weird. This is definitely a weird detail in this book. I mean, this book has a lot of weird details. This one in particular definitely stuck out to me because apparently her tutor quit her old job as a professor at one of the Huntsman Academies after one of her female students was killed by a Grim during a training exercise. And while the school didn't blame her, the girl's family absolutely did. And this just really, really got my theory senses tingling because a female student being killed during a training exercise at one of the Huntsman Academies, that sounds very, very familiar. It sounds just like Gretchen, just like Hazel's sister. So could this tutor have been the one responsible for Gretchen's death and for Hazel becoming a villain, for Hazel joining Salem's side? I mean, I'm not sure about that. I mean, I feel like if that actually was the case, maybe they would have dropped the student's name. Otherwise, I'm not really sure where to go with this. Is it just, an Easter egg here? Or will this tutor, or will Aurelia end up becoming relevant down the road, appearing in the main series? Because, that could be interesting. That could definitely be interesting. If Neo ends up joining my light just went on. Sorry about that. If Neo does end up joining the hero's side, at least temporarily, and then she runs into her former tutor again, I feel like they might have a very interesting conversation. Anyway, though, Neo finally comes back home and finds out that her father has actually paid off all the stores that she stole from so that they wouldn't press charges. And this just really, really ticks her off because for the first time in her life, she felt like, she actually managed to earn something. She actually managed to get something with her own two hands. I mean, yeah, she managed to get it by stealing, but in her mind, that's still way better than just having her parents' money pay for it. It feels like something she earned on her own, and so her father take that away from her. For her father to, basically say, I bought all that, therefore it's legally ours, it just ticks her off so much that she literally takes a pink umbrella and smashes her father across the face with it. Oh, that was fun, though he is just an utter and complete shock at this point. And from here on, he decides to get really, really serious about keeping Trivia inside, putting more and more complex locks on her door to try and keep her inside. And when Trivia isn't capable of picking the one lock, she decides to melt it using a can of hairspray and a lighter. But what she doesn't realize is while the lock is made of metal, the door is made of wood. And wood is really flammable. So her entire room goes up in flames very, very quickly, and she is forced to jump out the window using her parasol to keep her afloat. Though this is just an ordinary umbrella, it's actually not all that good for, being used as a parachute, so she has to use her semblance to keep it from, basically crumbling in her hand. She still ends up getting a rather rough landing, but she makes it to the ground. Huzzah! Just as her parents and the fire department show up, and her father is unusually upset, worried the firefighters will find the thing he has hidden somewhere in the mansion, which, huge red flags right there. while Trivia's mother is so angry that she punches Neo out of existence. She literally punches Trivia's imaginary friend so hard that she shatters, and Trivia is never able to put her back together again. But in that moment, she realizes that Neo was a part of her that was yearning to be free, and now they've become one. Now Trivia is more confident. Now she can stand firm and tall for the first time in her life. And this, kind of freaks her parents out, so they decide, all right, you know what? I'm done with this. I am done with this. We're going to send you to boarding school. We're going to send you to Lady Browning's preparatory school for girls, with her even saying a line, at least you won't have much to pack. Oh my god, that was brutal. That was so, so brutal. And Trivia has a roller coaster of emotions when it comes to the school. I mean, at first she's excited. That's it. I can finally leave this house. I'm not going to be stuck in this mansion anymore. And then she actually gets to the school and sees everyone with the same placid expression on their face, the same drab uniform, the same Triskelion pin they're wearing. And she's like, oh my god, this place is going to be freaking hell. And then she actually meets the headmistress, Lady Beat, who is actually fairly nice. I mean, not particularly nice, but she seems to see Trivia for who she is and promises that she'll be able to bring out who Trivia really is, to make Trivia the best version of herself, and this excites her. But then she actually, gets inside the school and she realizes she's sharing a room and a bathroom with 16 other girls, one of whom cries all night, another of whom tries to cut her hair in the middle of the night, and Trivia ends up stealing a knife from her and slashing at her face, at which point she becomes Scarface. Yeah, that was another weird moment in the series. Anyway, though, then Trivia actually gets into lessons, and while some of them are just painfully boring, like pronunciation, which Trivia still has to go to, despite the fact that she doesn't talk, which weird. Others, are really exciting, like gymnastics. Trivia has always been skilled at gymnastics and is incredibly good at, crossing a rope, which is suspended 30 feet in the air without a net below them. Yeah, Lady B is really a fan of tough education, and she manages to cross the rope faster than anyone else in the school, including the twins. Yes, those twins. They are a major part of this book. Another thing I did not see coming. Anyway, though, the twins are not happy that Neo beat them in the race, so they decide to play a prank on her by hiding her outfit, so Trivia just, uses her semblance to make a fake outfit for her to wear to class. And then when the twins go to actually find where the outfit was hidden, Trivia locks them in the closet and leaves them there for quite a while. And by the time she finally lets them out, they have absolutely and completely shredded her outfit to bits, so she's forced to basically put it back together. Another one of Trivia's skills is sewing. She is absolutely freaking amazing at sewing and could even become a fashion designer. She's basically able to rework her outfit into something that's spectacular, something that's beautiful, something that uses a lot less fabric than her old outfit but looks great in her, and she's able to wear it properly. Good for you. Anyway, though, then she decides to follow the twins out of the school at night to figure out where exactly they're going and try to get them in trouble, only for her to watch them go into a bar, and then a few minutes later, watch Torchwick get thrown out a window. Now, why was Torchwick in bail, and why was he thrown out a window by the twins? Well, let's flash back a little bit, because Torchwick's backstory begins all the way back when he was abandoned by his mother as a child. Yeah, that's a fairly depressing backstory. Basically, she was the only person in the world that he trusted, and after she abandoned him in an orphanage, he decided to never trust anyone again, to never have a partner, to never have a friend, to never have anyone he put any faith in, until he met Neo. Yay! But this happens for Neo. When he first turns 18, he moves out to Mistral, and he becomes a pickpocket. Certainly a very angry person. He beats a guy down in the street just because his coat looks warm, and he wants it. And then continues to beat the man afterwards, which, wow, that's brutal. That is so, so brutal. The only problem, though, is that the man just came out of a nightclub, which pays protection money to Little Miss Malachite. Yeah, that Little Miss Malachite, the head of the spiders, who we saw for all of 5 minutes back in Volume 6. As it turns out, she is the biggest crime boss in Mistral, so good for her. But anyway, her goons descend on Torchwick because, they need to defend the customers that come out of the businesses that pay protection money to Little Miss Malachite. The only problem is that Torchwick is a really, really good fighter and is able to take them down, and then decides to steal the protection money they collected. He steals from Little Miss Malachite, the biggest crime boss in Mistral, which just an overwhelmingly bad idea. and then he spends the next 2 days partying up with the money until she eventually tracks him down and brings him back to her headquarters and then offers him a job because she loves his style, she loves his confidence, she loves how strong he is and how he's not an idiot like a lot of her other employees. Though he did also steal from her, so before he can actually become a spider, he has to be initiated. He has to have a lot of his bones broken by the thugs he beat up before, which, you know what, that's fair. But she was right to hire him, somewhat, as within just a few years, he becomes her number 2, and that means that when Lois Malachite goes to war against another mob boss, she gives Torchwick the most important job in the world, guarding her children. Yes, which, as you might imagine, Torchwick is very, very bad at. He is not a fan of children, especially these children, who are, in fact, the twins. Yes, as it turns out, the twins are actually the children of Little Miss Malachite, which is a connection I did not make until I actually read this book. It might have been obvious to others, but I did not make that connection at all. Anyway, though, Torchwick is Torchwick, so he decides that the best course of action here is to bring the twins to the rival mob boss as part of some sort of plan to get inside his basement to figure out what it is he's hiding down there. As it turns out, what he's hiding down there is a giant rat grim, a capybara, who he feeds all of his enemies to, which, interesting. I mean, that's one way to certainly inspire fear in people. But Torchwick is just so next level. He's able to keep such a cool head in front of this Grim, and somehow so do the twins, that the Grim basically ignores him. He becomes invisible to the Grim, and instead goes after the mob boss that Torchwick riled up. Which is, oh my god, that's just so next level. And that just makes some very interesting parallels to his own death. I mean, in this situation, Torchwick was so calm that he literally became invisible to a Grim. By the point of his death, he was so overflowing with negativity and hatred and anger that a Grim literally descended out of the sky and ate him. Curious, very, very curious. Anyway, though, as it turns out, this was all part of Torchwick's plan, basically to convince Lois Malachite that he was a bad babysitter so that she would never put him in charge of looking after her kids again, which, oh my god, that was insane. That's the most insane plan I've ever heard in my entire life. Though later on it's revealed that Torchwick was forced to go to their gymnastic performances and dance recitals, so yeah, this actually makes a lot of sense. This makes a lot of sense for him to be so utterly desperate to get out of doing any of this. Torchwick, though, doesn't really learn his lesson and just keeps pushing things to the limit, even going so far as to demand double protection money from all of Lois Malachite's clients and then pocketing the extra, which, bad idea. Seriously, that's an even worse idea than using her children as bait. Because at that point, Lois Malachite realizes that she can't trust him at all and puts out the order to kill him. So he flees all the way from Mistral to Vale, where things are done very, very differently. People are just not used to crime at all. The mob bosses basically work, people pay protection money to them, and therefore there's no crime in the city. It's a very orderly system, and so people aren't really used to violence. In fact, when Torchwick goes to rob the bank teller is just really confused about what to do in the situation, even basically saying, aren't you supposed to have a gun and a mask? To which Torchwick responds, you watch a lot of movies, don't you, Fred? It is so weird, it is so bizarre, and I freaking love it. Anyway, Torchwick manages to rob the bank, and even takes out 2 huntsmen along the way, rock salt and candy floss, which, that's impressive. I mean, seriously, at the start of Volume 1, Torchwick can't even handle Team RWBY, and yet here in this bank robbery, he managed to take out 2 professional, licensed huntsmen. I mean, these 2 are clearly not the cream of the crop, but still, his power level definitely seems to fluctuate a little bit. Oh, and let's not forget that on his way to rob the bank, Torchwick picked a whole lot of pockets, and after he stole people's wallets, he put a business card inside those pockets saying, you have been robbed by the Roman Torchwick. Oh, that is so next level. That is so utterly next level. And then he watches himself on the news as Lisa Lavender reports this is the most vile crime Vale has seen in years. To which he thinks, I really should send that girl some flowers. Which he does. That'll be relevant later. He even gets a shout out from Ozpin, who says, Torchwick, you are clearly new in town, but let me just say, the likes of Vale will never accept the likes of you. We are watching. Which, great threat and all, Ozpin, but Torchwick continued to operate in Vale for a rather long time, and you did nothing about it. And then the very next day, Torchwick turns himself into the police, even bringing them donuts, which he promises are not poisoned. Fun fact, they are in fact poisoned. And instead of bringing him to the police precinct, they bring him to Haijong, the head mob boss in Vale, and the father of Junior. Yay, we finally get some connections there. And, Haijong is rather annoyed that Torchwick was moving in on his territory because the bank that Torchwick robbed actually paid him protection money. And then he plans on murdering him until he notices that Torchwick has a spider tattoo, meaning that he is one of Little Miss Malachite's spiders. And even as Torchwick tries to explain that he quit the spiders, Haijong laughs at him and says, "Nobody quits the spiders. Clearly you're lying to me, so clearly I won't murder you." And then just kicks him out, which a weird moment, a very, very weird moment. But Torchwick decides, we can't have this happen again. He can't have himself be saved by being considered part of the spiders, which is some weird logic right there. But he decides to go to a tattoo parlor and have the spider covered up by a smiling pumpkin, which now becomes his symbol. And Little Miss Malachite sends the twins after Torchwick to either kill him or bring him back to Mistral so she can kill him herself. She's very, very angry. And this is how Neo ends up meeting Roman. As she watches him get thrown out of a window, she's so impressed and awed by his flair and his style that she decides to save him from all the gangsters that are surrounding him, putting up a fake wall to hide him, and then having a fake Roman run down the street as everyone chases after him. Huzzah! And Torchwick is certainly impressed by this girl's semblance, but he's also a little bit irked because now he owes her a favor, and he doesn't like owing anybody a favor. Meanwhile, next day at the academy, Neo wakes up and wonders, was all that just a dream? But then she realizes, oh, no, that was true. All that actually happened. I helped a dangerous criminal escape the law. Good for me. But somehow, Lady Beat knows what Neo did, and Lady Beat makes her an offer saying, I'm going to move you up to the advanced curriculum where you study fighting, pure science, and all that exciting things, and have your own private bedroom, bathroom. And in exchange, I need you to get me some information about Torchwick. I need to know exactly where he is, exactly what it is he's planning. I need a sign of your commitment. And she just really, really rubs it on deep here. I mean, seriously, saying, oh, your parents failed you. Clearly, you're a bright, brilliant young girl. And the fact that you changed uniform, oh, that's fine. That's not against the rules. In fact, the uniforms exist to see how people wear them, to see who's a rule breaker and who knows how to bend the rules correctly. I'm just seriously goes on and on about how brilliant and gifted Neo is, and just, oh God. It is so obvious that she is tricking and manipulating her here, but Neo is desperate. She wants, a better life, so she agrees to it. And then she celebrates by going on another shoplifting spree, at which point she runs into Roman. Yay! And he decides to thank her by inviting her out to have a bite to eat at a fancy tea house, which, he tries to justify by saying nobody would think to find Roman Torchwick in a fancy tea house. But the truth is, he's actually trying to impress Neo, which is, oh my God, just so absolutely adorable. I mean, he fumbles his words for the first time ever because he's actually nervous in front of her. He actually has maybe a little bit of a crush on her. It's cute. It's definitely cute. And when she introduces herself, she says, "My name is Neapolitan," or she writes it down on her phone instead, because, that's who she is now, that's who she really identifies as. She even started dyeing her hair pink to more closely identify how Neo looked, how her imaginary friend looked to her, and to others when she used her semblance to make her look real. And Torchwick is strangely adept at reading her facial expressions, at reading her charades, understanding her without her needing to type anything out. And, she absolutely loves this because she is so used to having explained her story to people again and again, typing out on her scroll, and it's just so exhausting. But Torchwick, he gets her, he understands her, and she is really impressed by that. And then she decides to give him a gift. When she was on her shoplifting spree, she stole a new bowler hat to replace the one that was destroyed when he was escaping from those mobsters the previous night, and she even adds a red feather to give it some flair. Though as it turns out, the red feather was in fact a tracking chip. Yeah, Torchwick, you really should have seen that one coming. And it basically led Neo right to him because after Torchwick left, he said, oh, next time you have to find me. And he figured, okay, there's no way on God's green earth that she'll have any chance at finding me, but she does. And he is impressed. He is definitely impressed. And then somehow later on, she manages to get another tracking chip inside of his hat without him noticing, which, interesting, definitely interesting. Torchwick, you really should not accept any hats from this girl. She is clearly trying to control you and follow you. And then Torchwick spends the next couple months training Neo to become a true professional thief. And they decide their first big score is going to be to steal all the coffee in Vale. Or at the very least, to steal all the super expensive coffee that only gets imported from Mistral once a month. and then sell back at a highly inflated price, which, is certainly an interesting job. I mean, it does make sense. They can't really go after any of the big scores because either Haijong or Loomis Malachite are in charge of those, so they have to aim for something that no crime boss is actually currently protecting, and that's the coffee. There's a lot of recon involved with this job, making sure everything is exactly perfect, which kind of fails when Torchwick accidentally breaks into the wrong part of the building because he was holding his scroll upside down, which... Oh, come on, Torchwick, I thought you were better than that. And then things take a turn for even worse as he finds rock salt waiting for him inside the warehouse. Yeah, remember the huntsman he managed to outmaneuver in the bank robbery? Well, as it turns out, as a result of that, he lost his license and is now a security guard at this warehouse, which he is very, very angry about, and he ends up beating up Torchwick fairly badly. So Nita decides she needs to step in and save him, which she does by driving a truck directly into the warehouse and running him over. Or not necessarily running him over so much as Rock Salt jumps in front of the truck to try and stop it and just fails miserably, ends up getting plowed right into the main pillar holding up the warehouse, at which point the whole thing kind of just collapses all around them. But they are able to steal the coffee and destroy all the other coffee in Vale, so good for them. They now can sell it for a huge, huge markup and make a ton of money. Yay! This crime spree continues for a while longer as they just, do all sorts of crazy, insane jobs. At one point, they break into a museum just to steal from the gift shop. At another, they rob a convenience store just to steal a pack of Dr. Piper, I think it was called. And, they're just having fun. They're just being wild. They're doing whatever the freak they want. And Neo realizes her time at school is kind of limited because she promised Lady Beat that she'd get her info on Torchwick, and she hasn't really given her anything at all. Plus, Neo isn't really all that happy in school. Yes, the twins have started to accept her as one of their own, but she doesn't really want to be accepted by them, and she is much happier doing robberies with Torchwick than, going through the day-to-day life in school. So she decides to break into Lady Beat's room and find something in there that she can use against her. And she finds something rather interesting. I said before that everyone wearing the uniform wears the same triskelion pin on it. As it turns out, those pins are spy cameras, and they're the very reason why the school doesn't have any security cameras, because every single student is a security camera without even realizing it. And it goes well beyond that, because the graduates, the alumni, wear a golden pin to all the most important events in their lives, which are also spy cameras. I mean, I'm a little bit confused about how exactly Lady Beat made spy cameras that can work basically indefinitely for years or decades without running out of energy. I guess dust just lasts a really long time, but yeah, so that is an absolutely amazing racket. It basically allows, Lady Beat to have all their passwords, to have all sorts of blackmail material on them, and basically gives her and little Miss Malachite, who she's working for, complete control over all the women in Vale. So problematic, definitely problematic. And this information is literally worth more than its weight in gold. So Neo decides to steal the hard drive and then make a run for it. She has a little fight against the twins, but managed to escape. But she realized that if Lady Beat was spying on her all this time, then she and Little Miss Malachite know exactly where Torchwick is, and they find him. Oh no! And just to really, really add insult to injury, they even play him the video of Neo agreeing to work with them to get information on him, which, oh, that breaks his heart. That utterly and completely breaks his heart. So Neo decides she needs to rescue him. And the best way she can think to do that is to go to the police, but as it turns out, all the police in Vale are massively corrupt, and they bring her directly to Haijong, the mob boss of Vale, who is also friends with her father, which, yeah, as it turns out, her father is not a good person and massively corrupt politician. Who'd have thunk it? I mean, the fact that he's a public servant who lives in a 64-room mansion probably should have set up some red flags for somebody, but it didn't. As it turns out, part of the reason why her parents kept her locked up in the mansion her entire life is because they were afraid that Haijong would kidnap her and hold her for ransom, which he now tries to do. Unfortunate. Though he is also rather nice to her, he reveals that he actually gave her a bunch of gifts when she was a child, including all the fairy tale books that she used to read, her favorite being The Girl in the Tower, Salem's Story, which certainly has some interesting parallels to her own story. Interesting. Anyway, though, she reveals Miss Malachite's plan to spy on everyone in Vale, and thankfully his assistant/girlfriend, whatever, Stella, is currently wearing her triskelion pin, which he takes off and then smashes with the butt of his gun and finds the spy camera. Apparently he's the first person to ever realize there was a spy camera in the pin. Apparently nobody in the entire world has ever broken one of their triskelion pins. Another little plot hole in her whole let's blackmail everyone in Vale plan. But either way, he gets royally ticked off and decides to go after Loomis Malachite, especially when Neo claims that Roman has the hard drive with all the incriminating evidence on it, which he really wants, and which Roman really doesn't have. At which point he turns to Neo and says, "Hey Trivia, you've been a massive help, I really appreciate it, but I'm gonna hold you for ransom now and go up to Torchwick myself." But he's been left alone in the room with Neo, which is always a bad idea as she knocks him out, disguises herself as him, and then flies with his goons to go rescue/murder Torchwick. And if you wondered how exactly Neo learned to fly the airship, the Bulkhead, that's because on the way to go rescue/murder Torchwick, she watched Stella pilot it while also reading a book on her scroll called How to Fly a Bulkhead, and that was all she needed to figure out how to fly a plane. Good for you, Neo. You are terrifyingly intelligent, and just terrifying all around, because before they actually reach Torchwick, she opens the back door, and somehow finds a way to knock out every single goon, and Stella, who probably wasn't wearing a parachute. Yeah, let's not worry about that. And then she manages to rescue Torchwick. Huzzah! And she doesn't really have time or patience to explain everything that's going on this night because it has been a very, very long night. So she just hands him her scroll, and he looks through all the past messages she wrote out, and he's like, oh, okay, so that happened, that happened, that happened. And he's able to put together the pieces more or less. But then they're in a bit of an issue because both Hai Zhang and Loomis Malachite want them dead, and really, really want the hard drive they have. So they decide the best thing they can do is go home. They go to Neo's home, her mansion, which Torchwick is, fairly surprised by. Apparently at no point in their conversations did Neo ever reveal the fact that she is freaking loaded. And then we just get some really emotional moments I absolutely freaking love. Because Neo is, just so utterly terrified to reveal herself to her parents as she really is. To come out as a criminal, to come out as, Neo rather than Trivia. And Torchwick basically turns to her and say, Neo, you just took on two of the baddest gangsters in the entire world. You can certainly handle dealing with your parents. And then even when she tries to dye her hair back to all brown, he says, no, show them who you really are. Oh, I love that. I love that. What I love even more, though, was when Neo tries to explain who Torchwick is to her parents, her father just gives up after 2 seconds, like, oh, God above. Hey, you, the wanted criminal, do you have any idea what it is she's trying to say? And Torchwick's response is so utterly, utterly perfect. I do, actually. I'm surprised you don't. Oh, I love that moment. I absolutely freaking love that moment. Because seriously, Neo's parents have had, literally years and years of their life to understand their daughter, to understand what it is she was trying to say, and yet they cannot make heads or tails of almost any of her gestures. But Torchwick, who's only known her for a few months, is able to understand everything. He's able to read her like a freaking book completely and utterly, and it just really goes to show he put in the effort. He really did try to understand her, while her parents never did. They always wanted her to be a certain way, and they never understood her. They never understood who she truly was. And for a few brief moments, Neo's mother actually seemed warm and accepting, saying, oh, Trivia's always welcome home, and so are her friends. And she pours them tea. I'm like, okay, is it going to reveal that her mother actually isn't an awful person? And then Neo mentions how the tea is unusually bitter, and I realize, oh, God above. She poisoned the tea, didn't she? She drugged the freaking tea. Which, I'm actually a little disappointed in Neo here. I mean, seriously, Neo, you know what tea tastes like, and you use this exact same method to drug your tutor. You should not have fallen for it. But she does, and she ends up paralyzed and falls to the ground, while Torchwick seems to be paralyzed as well, but as it turns out, yeah, he didn't actually drink the tea. He knows well better than to take candy from strangers, and he pretends to be paralyzed long enough for the mother to monologue about all this and all that happened, and it seems like she actually wanted Neo to become a criminal. She actually wanted Neo to join the life of crime, the family crime, but her father didn't. Her father wanted to protect her from it. Her father wanted her to be innocent and pure and sweet for her entire life, which is a weird moment, a very, very weird moment. I mean, it does make sense, because as Neo's father is dragging her across the floor back to her bedroom, he's like, oh, it's going to be okay, it's all going to be okay, we're going to give the hard drive and Torchwick to Hai Zhang, it's going to be okay, and then we're all going to get together and have a nice family dinner, just like old times. It's like, dude, what kind of fantasy are you freaking living in? And then he drags her back to her old room, which has undergone some renovations. I mean, it was repaired to how it was before the fire, but at the same time, there's now a steel door and a biometric hand lock on it so that only he can open the door from the outside, which Yeah, man, this dude is trying really, really hard to keep his daughter locked inside. Weird. Very, very weird. Anyway, though, through their collective monologue, it's revealed that Neo's father is massively corrupt and, takes a whole bunch of payoffs from Haizhong to give his company the jobs and the contracts and all the important stuff. Though somehow he is still in debt to the man, somehow he still owes Haizhong money, despite the fact that he's the one getting paid off. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, Haizhong does own a casino. I could see it just him, being a massive gambler and being in debt because of that. But what I think is way more likely is that Neo's father was just living well, well beyond his means. I mean, like I said before, he's living in a 64-room mansion, and every single room is stacked to the brim with objects to art and stupidly expensive things. So yeah, he's just living well beyond his means, even after being paid off, which, God, this man is an idiot. This man is an utter and complete idiot. Anyway, though, then Torchic manages to knock out Neo's mother, ties her up in the parlor, knocks out Neo's father, and then uses his handprint to free Neo from her room. Yay! Though Neo does have to wonder why Torchwick didn't just cut off her father's hand and use that to open the lock, which may seem like a bit extreme, until it's revealed that the reason why her father put so many locks on the door is because her room is stacked to the brim with dust. Under the floorboards, there is a whole bunch of burn dust, which he has been stealing from Haizhong and hid in his daughter's room because he figured nobody would expect him to hide massively explosive dust underneath his daughter's own bed. Nobody would be that stupid. Nobody would be that evil, but he was. And this just really recontextualizes what happened when Neo set a room on fire, because burn dust is incredibly explosive, and if the fire had spread any more than it did, not just the house, but the entire neighborhood could have gone up in flames. Neo would have been reduced to nothing but dust. Or, poor choice of words there. Neo would have been reduced to absolutely nothing. She would have been eviscerated, evaporated. She would have been wiped off the face of remnants. So yeah, that kind of terrifies her. And she decides to lock her father in a room, which can only be opened from the outside with her father's handprint. So, yeah, he's basically stuck in there unless they, demolish a freaking wall. Oh, poor guy, but he definitely deserved that. Anyway, then they decide the hard drive they have with all the compromising information isn't really going to be all that valuable for all that much longer, and the best thing they can do with it is essentially just give it away. And so they decide the best thing they can do with the information is give it out to the public, to the whole world. And do that, Torchwick calls up Lisa Lavender, the reporter who first reported on Torchwick's vile crime spree, and who really did love the flowers Torchwick sent, by the way, which... Oh my god, that is such a weird line in this book. That is such a weird line. I love the flowers, by the way. This man is a serial robber, a serial killer. Is he a killer yet? Probably not. But he is the most wanted criminal in all of Vale, and you just had to comment about how much you love the flowers. Either way, though, as it turns out, she is also an alumni of Lady Browning's school, so she's also currently wearing the pin and is able to check it for herself. Seriously, every girl of note in all of Vale went to that freaking school, so concerning, very, very concerning. I can't even begin to imagine how valuable this data really is. Anyway, though, before he goes, he grabs all of Neo's father's files about the dust trade, who gets what, and plans on using that to steal dust down the road. And then Neo and Torchwick manage to escape the mansion, only to be met by Little Miss Malachite, who is flying a very heavily armored, heavily weaponized bulkhead right in front of them. And Neo manages to buy some time by basically disguising her and Torchwick as her parents, which is certainly kind of weird. But, even Torchwick realizes, what, this isn't going to work. Sooner or later, they're going to figure out. They know what your semblance is. They know what you can do. They're not going to let us escape. Just turn me in. Just turn me in. I'll be a distraction. I'll lure them away. Then you can run for it. You can escape, Neo. At least you need to escape. But Neo has a somewhat different plan in mind, as she decides instead to make it seem like her and Torchwick are upstairs in Neo's bedroom, which tricks Little Miss Malachite into firing on Neo's bedroom. The bedroom that is absolutely filled to the brim with burn dust, which is incredibly explosive, and which also contains Neo's father. So, yeah, Neo basically kills both of her parents in that massive explosion by tricking Little Miss Malachite into firing at the room, and does this in order to save Roman, in order to save someone who was a complete stranger to her a few months ago, because he's her true family. He's the one that really understood her. And I'm not really sure if Neo's parents deserve to die or not, but hey, it was a choice she made. She's a villain. She can do whatever the freak she wants, which is actually how the book ends. She says to herself, she just wants to do whatever she wants, and right now, she wants to help Roman set the world on fire. She finally feels free. No one is ever going to catch Roman and Neo. Oh, that's quite an ending. That's quite an ending. Though this still leaves a lot of loose threads. I mean, Torchwick and Neo basically just murdered Haizhong, basically just murdered Junior's father, and yet in Yellow Trailer, Torchwick goes to Junior in order to hire some muscle, in order to help him rob a bunch of stores, steal a bunch of dust. I mean, shouldn't Junior be more mad at Torchwick and Neo? I guess the argument could be made that, maybe he wasn't a big fan of his father, and Torchwick killing him allowed him to basically take control of the company, take control of the mob, take control of basically all of Vale on his own when his father wouldn't have let him. That does make a certain amount of sense. But then why are the twins working for him, working under him? I mean, the twins are in the bar with Junior both times we see it, so that's another very, very weird point. I mean, did Junior make a deal with Little Miss Malachite and get the twins as part of compensation? Did the twins decide they don't want to work for their mother and want to, help set up Junior as the big muscle in Vale, set up their own empire instead? That would make a certain amount of sense. And then in terms of Little Miss Malachite, in Volume 6, Neo goes to Little Miss Malachite, and Little Miss should have absolutely known who Neo was and been royally ticked at her, and asked her for help in finding the people who killed Torchwick. I mean, that doesn't make a whole bunch of sense at all. I mean, maybe the argument could be made that Little Miss appreciated Torchwick's, zeal, his spice, his style, and she was ticked off that she wasn't the one that, killed him herself, so she decides to help Neo find his actual killers. That would make some sense, but that's still something I would really like better explained. I mean, I think that would have made an absolutely amazing epilogue to this book. Flash forward to Neo going to Little Miss, going to the spiders, and asking for help in finding Torchwick's killer. Oh, that would have been fun. That would have been fun. But, instead we end it with them being free to go do whatever they want. No one's ever going to catch Neo and Torchwick. Which is, mostly true. Technically, Torchwick was caught by a Grimm rather than a person, so no person ever caught him, I guess. Though that does actually raise another interesting point. Is Torchwick actually dead? I mean, probably there's like a 90% chance he is, but there was two little moments in this book that kind of weirded me out about that. When Torchwick first meets Neo, and he suddenly disappears in front of everyone, they wonder, did Torchwick have a semblance and just keep it hidden as some sort of massive trump card? And then later on, when he's talking to Neo, he says, I don't have a semblance, at least as far as I know. So could it be saying that Torchwick did have a semblance that he unlocked after meeting Neo at some point down the road? Or maybe when he was eaten by the Grimm that allowed him to escape, that allowed him to survive being eaten, and he's still alive out there somewhere in the world? I mean, when Beacon fell, it destroyed the entire world's ability to communicate with one another, so Torchwick could have survived and just been in a coma or something for a few months, then woken up and not been able to find Neo, not been able to tell her, hey, I'm actually alive right now. You shouldn't go get revenge from me. We should instead start partying it up and living in this post-apocalyptic world where everything's gone to complete and utter heck. Just a thought. But anyway, please leave a down below. What did you think of this book? What did you think of my explanation of it? Was there anything massively wrong? What did you think of Neo murdering both her parents? Do you think they deserved it? Do you think she should have done that? I mean, it was really her only way of saving Torchwick, who was certainly more important to her than her parents were, but she really said she didn't really feel anything, any sadness, any grief, any relief when her parents died. They really meant nothing to her compared to Torchwick. That's certainly an unhealthy relationship, and certainly explains, why she's so angry at RWBY for kind of sort of killing him. Curious about that. Do you think we're going to get a sequel? I mean, like I said, the ending of this book doesn't really line up with the start of Volume 1, so I could see them setting things up for a sequel where they explore more of the crime world, where they explain how Torchwick end up on good terms with Junior and maybe Little Miss Malachite, and why exactly end up working with Cinder, because, a big thing for him throughout this whole book is that he does not trust anyone, and he ended up working for Cinder. I mean, he certainly didn't trust Cinder, but at the very least, he had to agree to work with her. I mean, did she threaten him? Did she basically give him no other choice? That would make a certain amount of sense. I mean, we all know exactly how powerful Salem is. There's nobody that can really stand up to her, so the only really options for those who know her true strength is to fight a losing battle, or to give up and say, okay, let's make Salem the true empress of the world. Huzzah! Let me know else down below. Be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss my next video, and until then, peace!